So hello and welcome to season 4 of the Mundane to Magical Online Summit series. My name is Louise Matson, and as always, I am truly blessed to be your host. So as we near the end of the final week, and I'm really excited to welcome another new beautiful speaker to the show, the amazing Cayelin Castell. Cayelin is the co-founder of the Venus Alchemy and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. She's a Magdalene and Divine Creation High Priestess in the lineage of Nicole Christine. And in addition to writing a monthly astronomy and astrology e-zine known as the Celestial Timings for the last nearly 25 years, she also enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teaching both online and in-person events. Cayelin changes the lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. And the topic for today's conversation is Venus magic, why working with the Venus cycle is life-changing. And I'm sure we could all do with a bit of Venus magic in our lives right now. Now, I started working with Cayelin and the Venus cycle back in April, and it has been a truly amazing and insightful journey ever since. So it's my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you to the show, Cayelin.
My total pleasure to be here, and we're going to have fun.
Absolutely. That is the name of the game. Have fun, keep things light. So as you are a new speaker to the show, and a very, very welcome one at that, I just wondered if you just wanted to briefly, because I know, your career in this, and especially with the Venus cycle and shamanic astrology is vast. If you would just like to share briefly your journey of you connecting with shamanic astrology, and in particular, the Venus cycle.
Yes, I would love to, of course. So I was one of those who, like most everyone on the planet these days, had a challenging childhood. But it was kind of like my parents were into interesting things. Like they were Rosicrucians, we went to Unity Church. I was initiated into transcendental meditation when I was 16. I went to the college when I was a little older. And so I had a lot of those kinds of things. I also had a lot of challenges. And I was aware that I wanted to have a different kind of an experience later in life. But I didn't really figure out how to create that entirely. I was like, I got better at it, but it was in the late 80s. I read Lynn Andrews' book, Medicine Woman, and I read that book and I said, I want to live a magical life. Like I had wanted that my whole life, but I was able to say it out loud and and to claim it. I claimed it in that moment, and literally it was the end of a life, end of a way of being, an end of a marriage. Everything was ending at that time. And then I started a new life. And part of that was my best friend from college, Maharishi International University, the Transcendental Meditation College. She told Daniel Jamario, who founded the Shamanic Astrology System, to call me and invite me to a talk he was doing in Tucson. I was 9 months pregnant with my youngest child. I have 4 children. And that was a oops baby. That helped put me on the new path. And I now call him my best bonus baby ever. He's awesome. So, but it was definitely not what I was going to do, because it had been 5 years since I'd had my twins. And after having twins, I was done. So I went to this talk and I was absolutely mesmerized by what Daniel was saying. And I had always thought astrology was interesting, but complicated. And so I was like, I'm not really going to learn that. Too much, too complicated. But what I heard him talking about was like, I could learn this. I need to learn this. I'm going to learn this. So it took me a while because I had a new baby a couple weeks after I heard him talk. And then, because I wanted to learn stuff and he didn't really have a program, I kind of just kept nudging him to create classes and I helped him write the Shamanic Astrology Handbook. I actually wrote it for him. And because, I wanted to learn this stuff, I couldn't travel around because that's what he was doing. So it was, and I had no idea that it was going to lead me to where I am today to help found the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. And then the whole thing about Venus alchemy was complete magic. And I will say, it was late 1980s when I decided I want to live a magical life. Shamanic astrology came into my life in 1990. So it's been 30 years. It's amazing. And it was like that magic experiencing that magic, I started noticing magical things everywhere all the time. It was so fun. I was like, this is my work. This is what I'm here to do. But at first I thought it was just for me. I didn't know it was going to be for other people. So that kind of grew and evolved over time. In 2013, late 2013, Daniel asked me to teach someone how to teach the synodic cycles. This is something that's unique to shamanic astrology of Venus, Mars, Mercury, and the moon. And it was a 5-day live event we used to do for people. And so he was moving to the Philippines. He wanted me to teach someone how to do it. And I was like, I love this work, but I don't know if I want to do that. But I said yes, because I didn't know how to say no. And I said yes. And we set it all up. And there was a deadline for people to sign up and get an early registration. No one signed up. And I was like, I think this is me, because my energy, whenever I'd feel into it, was like, I don't really want to do this. So I said to Tammy, who's now does Venus Alchemy with me, I said, I think we need to think about this in a different way. And maybe we do something online, take people through the story of Venus, the journey of Venus as a ceremony, so that they can have a living, alive experience of it. And then we do an event and see who comes, because there'll be more people that will be interested in it. We had so much energy around that. And a new cycle had just started. And this was in January of 2014. We had 3 weeks. We had 60 people sign up like immediately. And by the end of that, we had over 100 people. Like the energy was there. And so the magic, right? So if we're aligned with it, the magic will happen, and the people just showed up, and I don't even know how. Exactly. Like we didn't really promote it that much. It just happened. It was so great. And people loved that class so much. They kept saying, you're going to do the rest of them, right? Because there are 5 Venus cycles every 8 years. And so, so one cycle is about 19 months, and you can do a whole ceremonial journey with that. And then there'll be another one, and it creates a 5-pointed star. Literally, here's the Venus star behind me with the goddess in the middle of it, like, you know, and the crescent moon on either side of her, because she connects with the crescent moon, and the sun right behind her, because she connects with the sun as well. So it's been a magical, amazing journey that became Venus Alchemy, and literally had no plan, no idea, no sense that that's what we were going to do, but it just unfolded and evolved and has been this great, magical, fun, amazing adventure.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I can certainly attest to the fact that it is amazing, magical, and fun, because I've been doing the Venus, the cycle, the comprehensive Venus cycle, but then also specifically looking at the current cycle that we're in. But just for those people who may be very new to astrology, may, like you say, have looked at it and gone, oh my goodness me, that's really complicated and so much to remember, because that's certainly how I saw it when I did the astrology. I love it. I just can't remember it. I just can't absorb it.
You are not alone.
There's just so much. And that's actually one of the things I love about the shamanic astrology. It's more experiential. So if you're not somebody who kind of needs to learn verbatim from a book, it's kind of like you're living it, you're working with it on a very day-to-day visceral way. So that is one thing that I will say about the work that you do, in particular with the cycle. But for those people who only really know their sun sign or maybe their rising sign, can you just share a little bit more about what you mean by the Venus cycle and why it's such a powerful initiation into our feminine identity, regardless of what physical form we're currently holding, male or female?
Absolutely love to do that. So when we're born, there's that moment of birth, the planets are all somewhere in the sky. And where they're at gives us information. And from the shamanic astrology perspective, we look at that as intent. What is the archetypal mysteries you've come to investigate, to explore, to express, and to help evolve? So because we're in the speeded up time, clearly we're in an unusual time, these archetypes are going through a massive evolution as well. And they do it through us. So when we know what those energies are, we can work more consciously with it, because of course, as you said in the introduction, we inform the mysteries. We are informing the mysteries and they are informing us. So it's a living relationship. It's not just one way, and nothing's telling us what we have to do or be. It's like, but when we align ourselves with that intent, magic happens in massive, amazing ways when we're working with it rather than against it. And a lot of reasons people work against it: cultural conditioning, family conditioning, belief systems, traumas, different things that have happened. So if, you know, it's not like we're trying to work against it. But sometimes we just don't know. So this is such a massively helpful system to get aligned with that, and to understand that, you know, what, it doesn't matter what sign your sun is in or your rising sign or whatever that is. You could have 12 people with the exact same chart and they'd all be different because they have different things that have come up for them, or different ways of expressing it because it's unique to you. Well, Venus, of course, is one of the planets that is somewhere when you're born. And most people know sun signs. It's easy to know your sun sign. The moon is changing signs every 2.5 days. Not so easy to know exactly because it's, you know, changing. Sometimes you have to run a chart, especially if you don't, if it's changing the sign that day. If you're born earlier in the day or later in the day, it could be 1 or 2 different signs. But Venus is usually in a sign for about 30 days-ish. Sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. Sometimes it can be in a sign for 4 months, like it was this year when it was retrograde in Gemini. So depending on where Venus is when you're born, what sign it's in, there's that piece, but there's so much more to it than that, because you're also born somewhere within this 19-month Venus cycle. It's related to the story of Inanna. And literally the Sumerians created that story. Babylonians created the story. They named her Ishtar, and it's a similar story. We usually work with Inanna because it's the one that we had easiest access to, I guess. It's the same story. They just basically changed the names in the other story, a few little details, but they're basically the same story. But what it is it's describing the cycle of Venus moving through the sky as morning star in the underworld. When she's going through a shamanic death process, she rises into the evening sky. She's going through different gates that represent the different chakras. In the morning sky, she's releasing distortions connected to that chakra gate as she's going into the shamanic death process. And then in the evening sky, she's reclaiming a healthy relationship with those chakra energies on the ascent. We call that the ascent process. So there's ways you can work with it ceremonially to maximize your experience of Venus. And every 8 years, a person goes through a Venus return. And it'll be for a 19-month time period. So it can start as much as almost a 1.5 years before your birthday. It can be right at your birthday. It can be, you can, so depending on whether you're morning star, evening star, where you are, how long before and after your 8-year birthday. So one of the gifts of doing this process is I can count by 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, 96, and 104. So if you're coming into that birthday, or if you've had it, that one of those birthdays since June of this year, you are in a Venus return. And if you have that an 8-year birthday up to January of 2022, you are in a Venus return. And we have found that working with the Venus cycle is so empowering and transformative for people, especially when they're in their Venus return. But even if they're not, it's been really powerful. So did I answer your question? What about what Venus is?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, basically the Venus cycle it's how it's tracking through the sky. And we are currently in the morning star phase, where it is kind of, letting go of all of those things that are blocking us from basically, standing in the highest vibration of our energies, our presentations within the different chakras energies. So yeah, there was actually a question somebody had asked, Pamela had asked, that she knows she passed through a Venus cycle recently and wondered what the next one was after 75, and you've just answered that, which is 80. Yeah, so she'll see her next one at 80, mahalo. So yeah, but I mean, I have not consciously worked with the Venus cycle during a return, because I connected with your work after, which mine was, the last one was 48. But I have found it really powerful to work with it leading up to. So even if you're not on it, I really would seriously say, have a look at your Venus. Where is it? Where was it when you were born? And start connecting with that energy. And even if you just go out and look at it in the sky.
Yes. Oh, and especially when the moon comes by, because that will represent a chakra gate. We're currently at the heart chakra gate that happened in October 13th, I think. The next gate will be the solar plexus on November 12th. So if you go see that crescent moon in the morning sky coming down to meet Venus, so and literally sometimes that's all you need to do, and just open to receive a message, an insight, a download. There's, you know, if you want to do more, that's great, but a lot of times we don't even go and look at the sky. So one of the things we do in shamanic astrology is, and Venus alchemy, is encourage people to have a deeper relationship with the night sky, because ancient cultures did that. They built standing stone circles, they built pyramids, they built petroglyph sites, they built temples, they built chambered cairns that would have, like at Newgrange, you know, it's like the December solstice sun rises, it lights that passageway. Every 8 years, Venus will rise up right before the sun and light the passageway, because it's bright enough to do that. Venus is our brightest object in the night sky, aside from maybe comets or something, but it is the brightest planet always. And she lights that passageway, and then the sun comes up and relights that passageway at Newgrange. And they were literally tracking that. They were looking at that because it was so important to them to know when these things were happening, and to create ceremonial connection and intention around the magic that was available to them at that time. Powerful.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that you share as an activity is to actually review your Venus cycles in your life. So looking at what was happening in your life at the age of 8, 16, and all of those
24,
other 32. Not as good as counting. And having done that myself, it's actually quite amazing to see, looking back, what has happened in your life at that time. I mean, this energy is super powerful. And so having looked back and seen the amazing, like quite crazy events that were happening in terms of old ways of being falling away, relationships beginning and then ending on this cycle, you know, people passing away, you know, changing jobs, all kinds of different things. Just the you know, just the thought of, wow, you know, if I'm consciously aware of it coming up, how super powerful is that to kind of work with the energy in a conscious way?
Yes. Yeah, you know, when I just learned about the Venus cycle, I was in my age 40 Venus return. I'm an evening star, so it's a long time till I actually started it at almost 39. I was just at the last couple months of my 38th year, and so all of 39 and just a little bit of 40 because it ended after that. But that's when I started the priestess work that I did. I was initiated into this priestess process and was doing ceremony the whole time. Didn't know at that time that the Venus cycle was a full 19 months. I thought it was just on the 40th birthday, or, you know, we were thinking of it more in terms of that. But then as we, you know, Daniel Jamario did the research for the Venus cycle back in 1995, 94, 95, and 95 was when I started my Venus, end of 94 is when I started my Venus return, I guess. And so, so over time, we've had this evolution and understanding by working with the cycle, and it keeps evolving. That's the great part about it. It's like we keep understanding more. And so I mentioned that there are 5 Venus cycles every 8 years. So every 19 months, Venus rises in a new sign, retrograde in the morning sky. And this is where the ancient cultures, the Mayans, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, there may be other cultures too, they started the Venus cycle when you could see Venus in the morning sky. Not when she's conjunct the sun, you can't see her. So they always use the rising of Venus before the sun because she's stunning at that time. And so whatever sign Venus is in when she rises becomes the overarching theme of the divine feminine on the world stage at that time. So the best example I can give is that really like striking is that in March of 2017, Venus rose in the sign of Aries. Shortly thereafter, we had Wonder Woman. Then we had Black Panther. We had the Me Too movement, and more women run for office than ever before. So Aries is that wild warrior woman who's here to restore cosmic justice. Right? And she's a fierce warrior, a wild warrior energy that is not going to put up with the nonsense of things that aren't in balance or are there to support the evolution of life and everybody. So that's her role. And we really saw that play out on the world stage from March of 2017 to October of 2018, that 19-month cycle. And then just recently, Venus rose in June, on June 10th, I think it was, as morning star in the sign of Gemini. And so, so the energy of the feminine that's on the world stage now is, she is the creative, playful trickster. We need that energy now more than ever. Playful, don't take yourself so seriously. Have more fun, be more playful, more magic. It's all about, the Gemini is all about magic. She just loves that. It's like the, Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, the fairy magic kind of could be one way you look at it. She's also the storyteller. And so we're looking at her as the new world storyteller. What's the new story we're going to tell now? Because we need to tell a new story, because this old story is just old and worn out and doesn't work anymore. Not that it ever did. So, but it's the story that got told. So how are we now showing up to tell a new story? And we have until January of 2022 to really seed that so it can grow and flourish. And then in 8 years, 2030 will be the next, not 2030, 2028 will be the next Gemini cycle. So yeah.
So the points on the star behind you, they
Yes.
are the different points of the Aries and the Gemini and the various, what you call the meta goddesses that kind of overlay the energy of Venus at that time. Is that correct?
Right. For 19 months. Of course, Venus goes through different signs, but so some people may have their Venus in the same sign as the meta goddess that was on the world stage when they were born. Most people will have it as something different. It's probably majority of people will have it as something different. So for example, I was born when the larger story was Scorpio, but my Venus is Aries. So there's a synthesis that comes between those two things. And you probably know what yours is, Louise.
Yeah, my meta goddess is Aries, which I understand is shifting into Pisces.
Next time.
That's a whole different aspect, isn't it? But
yes,
my Venus, I think, is Sagittarius.
Right. Yeah. So that's the double fire. But it gives us an interesting information. And then also if Venus is a morning star or evening star in the underworld, gives us also additional information. So for example, I'm Venus in Aries, very fiery. You would think that she's the warrior, she's out there. I find myself as somebody who is a little more reserved and held back, especially, my childhood upbringing, it wasn't safe. So even though I'm growing more into that Aries piece, but I am also an evening star, and the evening star is, she's the fully initiated high priestess, wise woman energy. It's like adding earth to whatever sign your Venus is in. So she's going to be a little more reserved. And so this tells us a little bit more about how your Venus is meant to show up when we understand what star phase, whether you're morning star, evening star, or there's a longer underworld where the Venus is with the sun for about 60 to 90 days. And there's a shorter underworld. She's retrograde for about 7 or 8 days. We call that the metamorphic underworld because she's shifting from one sign. So in January, Venus will be shifting from Gemini and she'll be rising up into Capricorn. So she's going through that metamorphosis in that 7 or 8 day period. And very few people are born in that cycle, but it's very powerful additional information that makes so much sense to people that are born into that retrograde time, because it's like, oh, that explains so much about my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, all of these different modalities, whether it's astrology, numerology, whether you look at gene keys, whether, all of those different things, they give you another piece of the puzzle as to who you are and what your intention was as a soul, because there are no mistakes. Nobody's a victim of anything. It's like all the stars were literally aligned perfectly when you came in, where you were born, the family that you were born into, all of that. And I just think, you know, really going into this particular aspect, and like I said to you before we came on live, it's a life's work, literally, to look at where you're, you know, what's happening with your Venus and the whole Venus cycle. It would be a life's work to look at your Jupiter or your Mars or, you know, any of the others. But it just gives you so much more juice to play with in terms of understanding, but then also kind of seeing what's kind of coming up ahead and how you can work with the energies as opposed to feeling victim to them, even though we're not.
Right. And I love what you're saying, because one of the things we talk about in shamanic astrology is there's no better or worse. There's no right or wrong. There's no more powerful or less powerful. It's all powerful. It's all how we work with it. It's all how we engage it. And it's all intended to work. And we become the living expression of that moment in time, of where all the planets were at the time we were born. We become that living fulfillment of that. No matter what we do, it's just like we're still going to be the fulfillment of that. It's just, how do we want to experience that? Do we want to experience it as more fun and magical and amazing? And of course, yes, there are challenging things and things we have to heal and all of that. And it's like you know, I've been doing this a long time. I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm trying to have more fun with it nowadays. I'm like making that a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had a few questions coming in.
Yay.
So Jenny feels that she may be in a Venus return at the moment. I think she says she's written it in various places along the chat. Jenny is 40. So yes, that would say that she is.
When did she turn 40?
Her birthday is the 10th of the 2nd, 51. Oh no, that's somebody else. Oh, I don't know. I'm getting all confused. Jenny, when did you turn 40? Can you
If she turned 40 after June 10th, then she's definitely in a Venus cycle. January 13th. So you actually just completed your Venus return. And this new cycle that started in June is the next cycle. It still could be worthwhile to work with, especially if you missed working with the one that you worked with, as Louise is saying. And I've worked with all the cycles now, and I have gotten so much out of working with them, even if they're not my own return. Insights, ahas, revelations, understanding. So yeah.
Janet was the one whose birthday is 10th of February 51. She said she's a triple Libra ruled by Venus. Feels like a powerful time for her expansion. I'm not quite sure.
So she's not, 68 is not a Venus return. She will be in a Venus return in 4 years. But in 51, she was the meta goddess on the world stage, and Louise alluded to this a moment ago, that the meta goddess, the points of the Venus, the pentagram are shifting through the sky. So they're moving backwards through the signs, and over about 104 years for each point before it shifts to a new point. And so what happened was in 1975, the Virgo point that Janet was born into shifted to Leo. So then we look at working with two meta goddesses, the one you were born with and the one that it shifted to. And that just happened to me in this last Venus, my Venus return was the last cycle that just ended. And it started out as Scorpio. This will be true for the woman who cycle just ended as well. And she turned 40 in January. Yeah, so she started out as Scorpio, and now it's Libra. And Libra, one of the things I loved about working with the cycle was the deeper understanding of co-creative, collaborative, conscious relationship with ourselves and with each other, and equal, meaning not hierarchical, meaning not the same, equal meaning that I have gifts to bring, you have gifts to bring, we bring them to the table, and then it's an enriched experience because they're valued as equal, not more important or less important than any other. So that was really a fun cycle to work with, but first time on the world stage in 155 years. And literally also was the cycle that the US, United States, was born into, interestingly. So coming back to that.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody, I think it's Pamela's just said, what are the 5 signs for the Meta goddesses?
So currently, because it's always changing, we're in Gemini, and then in 2022, it'll go into January, it'll go into Capricorn. That's the circle of grandmothers, the wise ones, the ones who are here to support us in this journey. And so that's the one where we really literally started Venus alchemy. The grandmothers were calling to us to start this work. So we've been honoring them all the way through this process. And then from the Capricorn cycle, I think it'll be in 2023, like August of 2023, it'll go into Leo. And then from the Leo cycle, it was going into Aries, but the last Aries cycle just ended in 2025. It goes into Pisces. So that'll be the start of that cycle. And then it goes back to Libra. It just went in from Scorpio into Libra. And then from Libra, it goes into Gemini. So those are the 5 current points. And all the shifting is done for a little while. Won't be any more shifting for a while after we get to the Pisces one in 2025.
Yeah, because that's the one that I hold, the Aries to Pisces. And so that's an interesting change in energy from the kind of the fiery kind of warrior kind of energy into a much softer.
Well, the empath, the one who's here to help and heal, the one who has the ability to feel profoundly, compassionately. And yeah, it's not like I'm going to go out and like Sekhmet and take off heads. Aries. We see Aries as being very Sekhmet, and Leo too, being very Sekhmet, but just being the compassionate goddess like Kuan Yin, who says, hey, I am enlightened, but I'm going to stick around until everybody else is enlightened. Tara and Kuan Yin both share that quality, and I will hold the space for everyone to get there. And the challenge around Pisces is that it is an energy that has been more codependent and addicted to helping. Like, if I can make you okay, I'll be okay. I have a Pisces sun, so I know this one kind of well. And so I operated more from there than I have from my Venus and Aries. But the healthy aspect of Pisces is to say, I will sit with you wherever you are, and I will be there and support you with compassion. And sometimes that is all a person needs in order to have a profound healing experience. They don't need you to do anything for them. They don't need you. If they're just received in that moment, in that pure place of compassion, so powerful. And that's really what Pisces brings.
Yeah, and to be honest, I kind of feel like I'm moving towards that already. That is definitely, I can see and feel that in my journey. I mean, part of the summit is that I'm holding space. I'm holding space for the beautiful speakers to share their wisdom, but then also the community. During all the seasons, I hold the space of the container etherically for the whole process to unfold. So yeah, I kind of
thank you for saying that, Louise, because I feel like I moved from Scorpio to Libra before it actually happened, and literally finally got it right, because I'm married to my 3rd husband, and people who've heard me speak before know I call him my BHE, best husband ever. And we just celebrated 14 years of being married, and it's better than ever. And by this time in both of my previous marriages, it was either over or almost over. And now I'm like, this is better than ever. It's like, whatever we've been doing is so cool. So really having that experience of conscious, collaborative, co-creative relationship has been something I've been working on now for a while. And I feel like I moved into it in just this beautiful way that I wasn't expecting. And I didn't even know I was going to have a Libra meta goddess when it started.
That's what I mean. That's the beauty of doing it consciously. I mean, the process was already happening.
Yes.
It was only through doing the work with the comprehensive Venus cycle that I was kind of like, oh, okay. It kind of made sense that I was kind of shifting, and I could see that shift. And I just think it's nice knowing where you're kind of heading to, because that way you can do it in a more conscious way, and it can then be maybe smoother, more graceful, as opposed to kind of, learning by the odd mistake here and there, although there are no mistakes.
Right. And it also helps you because it's a way of getting some feedback like, oh, this is what's happening for me. And it's exactly what's supposed to be happening for me. How cool is that? I am on track. This is good.
Exactly. Absolutely. Oh, so we have another question. This is from Nalini. Would you mind mentioning the influence of the metamorphic Venus on the Jupiter, Pluto, and Jupiter Sag conjunctions coming up?
Well, the metamorphic Venus happened back in June because she was retrograde then, and she conjuncted the sun, and then she rose as morning star. But so when the Jupiter Saturn conjunctions happen in December, it'll still be the Gemini Meta goddess on the world stage. She's morning star, and she'll be coming into the root chakra. Either she'll be, or the sacral chakra, I think actually is what's happening in December. Probably early December. So that, but the Jupiter Saturn conjunction only happens every 20 years. The last time was in 2000, and the time before that was 1980 and the 1960, and it like happens on the O years. And this is the first time it's been in Aquarius in 615 years. So this is going to be spectacular, and it'll be 60 years before we have another one, and it'll do it a few times in Aquarius every 60 years, and then it'll shift into something else. So it kind of shifts through the different signs over time. And we've been in Earth, where Jupiter Saturn conjunctions have been in Earth, and now we're shifting to air. So and which is interesting because of course we have a Gemini Meta goddess in air. Gemini is air sign, and Aquarius is an air sign. So there's a lot in terms of our expanding our vision, having more fun and playing with it. Aquarius might be a little more serious, but Gemini would bring in a more playful, like, let's not take ourselves so seriously. Let's have more fun. Let's have a fun vision. Let's have a fun expanded vision.
Absolutely. Let's bring some unicorns and fairies in on this whole thing.
Yes, exactly.
Let's scatter some rainbow crystalline shards everywhere.
Right? Yes. Ride the rainbow, play with the fairy energy, ride the unicorns. Yeah, definitely.
That's what I like about it. It's kind of like things overlay on top of each other. You know, you've got something going on over here, but then you've got this with this meta goddess. And so that brings that energy, not just to your personal cycle, but to whatever cycle we're all collectively going through. Because, you know, it's all happening. All of this is happening with us collectively, as well as on an individual level as well. So I think that's the thing that I like about it. It brings that other aspect to something that could be quite challenging over here because it's got this certain energy, but actually this is all fluffy fairies and all kinds of things. And that just kind of gives this fluffy blanket feel to it. Or am I just being too rosy sunglasses?
Hey, I think we get to look at it any way we want to, and whatever works for us. And if we can get that to work in our life, that's more power to you. Because, you know, it's like we're co-creating our reality with what we're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So if we want to look at it in a certain way, I mean, of course, if we're off track, the universe will give us signs and messages that we're really off track. So we'll get if we're paying attention, we'll get the message and we can get back on track with that. But yeah, no, I think it's great to look at it whatever way works for you, and whatever you're feeling like in that inner knowing place, like, how is this showing up for me now? One of the things I love about the Gemini Meta goddess right now is she's the rainbow goddess. She can be anywhere. She can be in the celestial realm. She can be in the underworld realm. She's not from any one of those worlds. She's from all of them. She's a free electron. She can be anywhere. And she rides the rainbow. And so we can bring in that rainbow medicine and a new promise for a new world. We need that right now.
Absolutely, definitely. Liz has put, she's been going through so much over the last few years and wonders if she's in one. I'm presuming that's a Venus return. Her birthday is the 27th of the 12th, 69. Well, 69, that would be same as me, because I'm 12/12/69. So that would be in 2025 that you go through the next return.
Right. And so there's the other thing to know, just from the shamanic astrology perspective, is that we all go through personal and collective or generational initiation cycles. So Venus every 8 years is definitely an initiation cycle we go through every 8 years. And it's the intent is to help us to have a higher expression, a higher octave of expression of our intended Venus, whatever that might be. And having to die to the things that aren't helping us get there so we can be reborn to the things that are. It's like dying to who you think you are so you can be born to who you really are. My favorite saying on that. But you can have other cycles. You could have Saturn cycles, Pluto cycles, those kinds of things going on. And literally everyone in my family is in a Pluto cycle. I start one next year, and I've been watching them going, oh boy, Pluto, because that's another death and rebirth initiation. It's meant to empower us, but often we have to experience the disempowerment of facing our deepest fears and the things that are holding us back from being more of our sovereign empowered selves. And so that's not easy. It's not an easy process to go through necessarily, but on the other side of it, if we surrender, if we engage it, if we allow ourselves to not resist the changes that are trying to happen for us, they're going to happen for us probably whether we want them to or not. I like to describe that as the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. The caterpillar can resist all at once. It's not going to get out of the process. Once it's in the cocoon, it can't get out until it becomes a butterfly. So that's kind of like what Pluto does to us, right? So when we understand that, and we can give ourselves permission to be in that process and not fight it, or feel like we're failing somehow, or we're not doing enough, or we should be doing something differently or better or more or whatever. And, you know, part of our challenge in this culture is that we are very much doing addicted, and we feel like our value and worth comes from how much we do. We'll be talking about this at the solar plexus chakra, by the way, because that's where I think that addiction resides in our solar plexus, our needing to do, to have value, to have worth, to have a sense of accomplishment, that we belong, that kind of thing. And I can speak about this because I have a very bad doing addiction. I'm like, yeah, I don't drink coffee. I'm not into alcohol. I don't, but my doing addiction, wow. It's like, it has run the show most of my life. I'm proving myself to some outside something that, you know, like I do deserve to be here. So.
Yeah, I can hold my hand up to that one.
I think you could. And probably everybody on this call could too. So, you know, so becoming aware, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it because you love doing it? And I'm getting to that place more and more, because doing is a part of life, same as eating is a part of life, right? So people can have eating addictions, but you know, if you're eating to nourish yourself and for those reasons, it's not from an addiction. If you're doing because it's something that is supporting you and helping you and you love it, and you're not trying to prove yourself to something outside of yourself, or feel like you must, you should, you have to, then your doing is good. But if you're doing it because you're still trying to prove something unconsciously or consciously to yourself or to people outside of yourself, then it's an addiction.
I think that's a really interesting thing, because as well, it's like, you know, like you've said, it's trust, faith, and surrender to these processes a lot of the time. And it's like shifting from that doing just to allowing you to be in that doing it because this is something that will fill your heart with joy. You know, we've got all those stories about money and, you know, I have to do this and yada, yada, yada.
Survival.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, you kind of go, okay, well, what, because I ask myself the question every day, what would bring me joy today? What would bring me joy in this moment? You know, I kind of feel into where I'm at. And if I'm in a kind of lower ebb, it's like, okay, well, what would bring me joy? But there's always that kind of program that kicks in along with this addiction to do through, you know, something purposeful, something that society has deemed meaningful, as opposed to what might bring me joy in that moment. So it's a massive thing that plays out. It really is.
Yeah. And I think it's really a lifelong practice of undoing our doing addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time. And sometimes we can be unconsciously in it. And it's like sometimes I'll just like, whoa, look at that. I am completely caught up in that addiction again. And sometimes it's hard to see because I love doing it, but I'm overdoing it.
Yeah.
So, so there's, you know, it's like, how do you keep that in balance, like spending enough time in nature and doing your practices that help you to feel more centered and connected and all of that. Going out and spending time with the night sky, being with the full moon, being with the rising sun or the setting sun, you know, those kinds of things that ancient peoples did. They did that as a practice. And certain seasonal points when there were equinoxes and solstices, or the sun would rise between certain notches in the mountain, or, you know, those kinds of things, then they did ceremonies. They would know this is the time to do certain ceremonies because that's what's happening seasonally, and this is how we honor that time. We've lost that. And so this is just a way to begin to get it back. And it was literally purposely taken away from the people so that only the elite would have this knowledge and information, because so they could be in command and control. So our part of our taking back our power is to take back these mysteries and engage with them and know what time it is and how to work with Venus, the seasonal cycles, the moon cycles, whatever, Jupiter cycles, whatever it is, Mars cycles. Mars is stunning in the sky right now. The moon was just with it last night. Amazing. And it's brighter than it'll be in like 15 years. You know, it's powerful. So go out and be with that tonight. And you can see Jupiter and Saturn getting closer and closer every night until December, when they're going to be with each other exact in the closest conjunction they've had in hundreds of years. So it might be a little harder to see, and it'll probably be in the morning sky, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, what I have noticed is that actually working with the Venus cycle has made me more consciously aware and feel that pull of the planets to go out and connect in the night sky, or, you know, middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, usually when I'm called to wake up, I will immediately go to the back bedroom and just look at the sky. And it's made me realize the strong pull desire for me to move into more of a countryside place, because I feel cheated because of the light of the city, or, you know, the fact that I can't engage with the sky to its fullest as I probably would. And I found that really interesting. It's just consciously working just with the Venus cycle has made my connection to the whole of the night sky so much stronger.
Yeah, it's so amazing how that works. And literally, because if you try to think about all of it, it could be overwhelming. So pick one thing, and Venus is the easiest thing to find in the sky when she's visible in the sky, which is most of the time, and easy to see. You know, also when the moon comes by, and you know what stars are behind her, what stars is she with, and right now, she's in the constellation of what we call the Virgin Priestess, also known as Virgo. Whole other discussion about how the signs are seasonal and the constellations are the star patterns. They got named the same names, and people get confused. but Venus is, well, when she's with the sun, when she's with the moon, next time will definitely be close to the star Spica that's in the constellation of the Virgin Priestess. And so that star was one that was, many cultures worked with big ceremony whenever planets were close to that star, and that ancient alchemists, they would do their special making talismans, and they would make elixirs and different intentions and things when a planet was close to that star. And this, in November, we're going to have both Mercury and Venus with that star, and the moon will come by there too.
Wow.
So that's like super high magic, and definitely you don't want to miss out on that, but you have to get up before the sun in order to see it. Like ideally you would want to get up while it's still dark and there's no light in the sky so you can see it.
Yeah.
Awesome, by the way.
I think I'm definitely an evening star watcher. The morning, I've really struggled. Or the days when I have got up, it's been cloudy. The UK is not always great.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's beautiful when you do actually get out there. Pamela has put, how would Venus in Taurus be impacted by the current cycle? Venus in Taurus in the 7th house conjunct with Mars in Taurus.
So that's not, depending on if you are in a Venus return or not. So if you're in a Venus return, it's definitely about taking that Venus and Taurus to a higher octave. I love Taurus energy because this is one we need a new story about for sure, because Taurus, I mean, most of the descriptions of Taurus can tend to be more about the shadow side. It's lazy, it's stubborn, it's, you know, whatever. But it's really about how do we receive the pleasure and beauty of life? How do we celebrate that in our body and with, you know, connect to the body of the earth and our bodies and really enjoy intimacy, pleasure, savoring the moment. And one of the reasons Taurus can get into trouble sometimes is it stays in the moment too long and then it misses its, you know, like appointment or something. You know, some of those people that are chronically late might be a shadow side of Taurus, but you know, that experience of pleasure. And my husband is Moon and Mars in Taurus, and so I've been really doing a bit on health journey for a while and really paying attention to how I eat and how I feel, because that's to me what's pleasurable. So eating certain foods that make me feel miserable is not pleasurable, even if it was pleasurable to eat that food for a minute or two. But then I have hours of major pain and I'm like, no, Taurus wants sustained pleasure. So finding the pleasurable foods that are healthy and good for you that will help your energy feel good, that's like a process of pleasure. And also beauty is connected to Taurus. Like, so how we experience beauty. And when we think about how we've been conditioned to think certain things are beautiful or certain ways of looking for women or even men, you know, that there's been this cultural conditioning around what beauty is. But, you know, so it's time for us to get our power back on that and be able to receive the beauty of who we are, because it's not on how we look. It's from the inside out, not from the outside in. So there's a lot about Taurus that is learning how to receive, and we've been taught it's more blessed to give than receive. So so receiving is not something that's easy for many to do in our culture, but receiving really starts with gratitude. So if you can have gratitude for everything you already have in your life, that's a practice of receiving. So anybody with a lot of Taurus in their chart, even if you don't have Taurus in your chart, but especially if you have Taurus in your chart, practice gratitude, practice receiving the beauty of life, the gift of life. Life is a precious gift that we've been given. And literally just heard this again, and I heard this back in my late teens when I was involved in transcendental meditation, and I heard one of the top speakers speak, and he said, there are literally thousands of souls that are waiting to incarnate here for every person who's incarnated. So if you have a human life, you have a precious gift beyond measure. And if you don't value it, you are disregarding the gift you have been given. So, and then I've heard it from other places too, and other sources just recently. I'm like, huh, that's right. We've got to value this gift. We've got to receive the gift of life and appreciate it, and like practice that ability to receive and say, okay, things are tough, things are challenging, whatever's going on, but I still get to be here. I still get to be part of this transition from one cycle to one great cycle to another. We're in literally a bigger cycle than going into the age of Aquarius. We're in a 26,000 year shift that only happens every 26,000 years. And what's going on in the sky is a longer story, but and we get to be the transition team. We're here, we get to witness it. We are so fortunate, whether we know it or not. We're so fortunate to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, I get that message a lot. You know, it's like I've done a lot of soul contract readings, and pretty much every single one of them it shows through the chart, very old soul that basically put their hand up and said, yeah, I'm in, sign me up for that one, kind of thing, to be in the transition team, right? And completely understanding that it's not going to be all rainbows and light and unicorns and fluffy things, you know, as you transition, like you say, the caterpillar.
We get some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
not all of it.
But, you know, it's like we have to go through the caterpillar, going through the primordial soup bit to come out as a butterfly. So, but we all put our hands up to be part of this process. And so many other souls, individuated sparks, didn't get picked to be here in this moment. So it is, you know, regardless of how it may look outwardly, it is an absolute blessing. And it's allowing yourself to connect with that. And I think for me, the Taurus aspect is embodiment, because it's not about us connecting out there. you know, somewhere in the nether regions. It is about embodying that spark within.
Well, there is, I think in certain spiritual traditions, there's this idea of evolution going up and out, and like, oh, you know, let's get out of this cycle of that life, you know, reincarnation. But then from other perspectives, a lot of Native American perspectives and other indigenous tribes have the perspective of involution, meaning we're coming down and into the physical body so we can have this experience, so that we can experience ourselves, ideally remembering that we are divine, but we're also physically embodied, and we need to be embodied to have that experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not always easy. And I remember I was probably in my late 20s or early 30s, and I had a session with this woman. This is before I was doing shamanic astrology. And she did the session with me, and she goes, welcome to your physical body for the first time in your life. Like, you've been up here, you've not been in here. I was like, yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. I had that realization. I thought I was a really grounded person until like this kind of 12-month cycle just gone. Then I realized that I have not been grounded at all. I've kind of been pretending to be grounded because I haven't wanted to connect with the density. But it was actually when everything kicked off, I've been more embodied now than I have ever allowed myself to be, which I found quite amusing. But yeah.
That's great. Well, and so Taurus is definitely about being embodied because it's an earth sign. It's about being in the physical realm. Gemini, on the other hand, is more mental, but it's like, how do you get those two things to work together? If you're looking at the Gemini cycle and what's going on with Venus right now. So depending on where your Venus is, you could look at, okay, so how am I bringing more fun, more play? It doesn't have to be so serious. It can be more enjoyable, pleasurable, and also bringing in more beauty. That's the whole Taurian piece. But Gemini would say, and let's have fun doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, I do. I kind of see it as a Gemini fluffy blanket over everything. Everything that's going on at the minute, you've just got this Gemini fluffy blanket. It's like, lighten up, smile. Right. So Jenny's just said, what is the name of that star again? Is that Spica?
Spica. It's S-P-I-C-A, Spica, or I don't know. I mean, it could be pronounced differently, I suppose, but I've always heard it Spica, so I'm going with that. And it's the brightest star in the constellation of the Virgin Priestess. It's where she holds, in many of the versions, that she's holding the wheat or the corn in her hand. Also in the Justice card, the tarot cards, it's where she's holding the scales of justice, because the constellation next to her is literally the constellation of the scales, balancing the scales, right? Or in the Hermit card, it's where he's holding the lamp in his hand. So that there's different ways that has been depicted over the eons of time. I like to think of it as, you know, the idea that as we sow, so shall we reap. Right. So what are the intentions we're sowing? What are the thoughts what we're thinking, and all the things we're doing is sowing our reality, right? And we will reap that reality. So if we're thinking negative, mean, nasty things, if we're greedy and trying to take advantage of people, that's what we're going to be. And I'm just kind of calling on the universe to, hey, send it back to people if they're doing those things, so they can wake up and realize that we're all in this together. This is not a time to be taking advantage of other people, but that we could work together and create a better, more joyous, fun, collaborative, creative world.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's that issue of consciousness, being conscious about something, and with the Venus is all about, kind of like, what are you valuing, what, where are your values, what, your moral compass and things like that. And again, it's like, if we're wanting to shift into this world of collaboration and cooperation and becoming unified, that unity consciousness, then it's not just how we are, what we're sending out thought wise, the language that we use, the energy literally that we're sending out into the unified field. to each other, but also then to the planet as well. And I think this time of the lockdowns and everything really showed that actually all of this talk of this has to be a long process to make any change on the planet is rubbish. You know, it's like, okay, we might not have enjoyed it, but
but sometimes fast change requires that. Right?
Yeah, but what an amazing experience to actually see literally the air clear, so that, you know, people had never experienced clear air in certain cities, and then within a month, 2 months, it was there. It's like, okay, so we now know that it's possible, and it's really about what do we really want? Do we really want that? Because if we do, we know what we can do to create that.
Just keep doing what we've been doing. That'll do it. If we don't want that, then we have to stop doing what we've been doing. That will stop that. Right.
Exactly. Constance has put, when will this be the case? And I'm presuming she's talking about the conjunction with, I think you said it was Mercury and the moon with the spiker.
Yeah, so Venus, the moon, and Mercury come together. They're going to start closer and closer as we move into November, which is happening really fast. So, and then by November 12th, the moon and Venus will be there. Mercury will have already passed. I think it's early November when Mercury passes. In fact, Mercury stations direct on November 3rd, election day in the US. The last time that happened was in 2000. And it stationed direct on the election day, and it took weeks to figure out the election. It was also a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in 2000. So we've got those two things coming together. And then there's some other factors that are going on that'll make it interesting, but it's stationing with Spica. So, and it'll be visible in the morning sky. Although it might not be so easy to see right away, but because Mercury never gets high above the horizon. So you have to have a low horizon, and you have to have clear skies to be able to see Mercury with Spica. But Venus will be there with the moon come November 12th, or close. It won't be exact, but it'll be very close. Anything within 6 degrees of Spica is what the alchemists would use for their ceremonies and their talismans and their elixirs and their potions and things that they were doing. So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I'm just aware of the time. We've been speaking for an hour. So if anybody has any burning questions that they really want Cayelin to answer about the Venus cycle, about, you know, any, you know, your personal cycle and where you might be, or anything that we've been discussing, then please either pop it in the Q&A or pop it in the chat. I'm keeping my eye on both.
Just so people know, if you want to know what your meta goddess was when you were born, if you give me your birth date and year, I can tell you that pretty quickly. I have a chart in front of me, so I can tell you that.
I'm just going to allow Shelley to speak. Oh. Hi, Shelley.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I love this show. You're wonderful, Cayelin, and I'm 65 from June 30th. Where am I at? Because I'm going through a lot.
Well, interestingly, 65 has, there's certain cycles that happen at certain ages. So you're probably in a nodal reversal. There's a Saturn square, I think, that starts to happen around that time. Saturn square, is it Saturn square?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And then, but you're finished with your Venus return. That would have ended in June, earlier June, because you're in the same Venus cycle return that I'm in, because that was, mine ended as well. So you were born with a Scorpio meta goddess, and you were probably a morning star. So wait, in 1955?
55, yep.
And what was the date again?
June 30.
June 30th, okay.
And I know I was 432, so would that mean morning, I would imagine morning star, or no, that does not mean?
Your morning star, the time of day doesn't matter. It's the where you are in the Venus cycle. It was a morning star, and it was already at the root chakra gate. So Venus had made quite a descent already at the root chakra. And we have found that at those, whatever chakra gate, some people will have a chakra gate, some people won't. But if you have a chakra gate, there's often issues or challenges that have been in your life that are there to get your attention so that you can have a stronger connection to a healthy relationship with that chakra.
Oh, no, nothing heavy.
Well, I just will tell you, because we're in the same Venus cycle, I'm an evening star throat chakra. And so you're morning star root chakra. But for me, being able to speak in front of people, I was absolutely terrified to do that for years. So I definitely had throat chakra issues that I have worked on a lot.
Yes. I'm with you. I do speak. I mean, I do work with people, but in a group or speaking up on the dais, look out.
Right. And then, you know, some of that can be also root chakra feeling safe, right? So you need to feel safe to be able to speak out.
Totally. What is safety? What does that mean?
Yeah, let me think about that for a minute.
Beautiful. Okay, so a relatively easy. I mean, it's a beautiful time that I'm having. It's so much discovery, so much change and transformation, but not rough things so much. Would you say? I mean, that's a silly word, but
well, so I mean, a lot of times, how challenging an initiation cycle can be for us depends on how far off track we are with where we really intended to be. And
absolutely,
these are helping to get us back on track. And if we're resistant, they become more challenging. If we're able to say, oh, I see that this is trying to get me on track, so I just go with it, then it is a lot easier.
Beautiful.
I'll just give you a quick example. My daughter has been on a Pluto cycle, and when she started it, when she was 8, probably a Venus return, she had her front knocked out, and they were able to reinsert it, and it died. And so she starts this Pluto cycle, and they take the tooth out and they give her an implant. It takes it's supposed to take 5-6 months. It takes like almost a year for her. So she's a gaping hole. She can put a fake tooth in there, but when she eats, she has to take it out.
Oh my God.
She just played with it, but it was like, she said it made her go through every fear of all the places she didn't feel worthy. She didn't feel good enough. She didn't feel like beautiful enough, whatever it was. She had to go through all that, and she knew she was in a Pluto cycle, so she just embraced it. And on the other side, she's been very empowered to have a different perspective and view of herself and stepping up in a different way. So that's beautiful. The opportunity that we have.
Absolute. Our challenges always are that, but that we don't always recognize it. But how beautiful to recognize that at that age. How fortunate.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Jelly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so
Be
welcome.
well.
Total joy.
I've got quite a few people who would like to know their meta goddesses. So we'll start with Sharon Thomas, whose date of birth is 27th of the 4th, 74.
74. What was the month?
Just a mind freeze. April.
April. Okay. Okay. April 1974. And what was the date?
27th.
27th. Okay, so that means she's going to go in, you're going into your Venus return starting in January of 2022. That and the what am I trying to say here? It was at the throat chakra, morning star. So the morning star is a more fiery energy, likes to just jump in and do things. Evening star is like, let me think about that for a minute. And Capricorn, the grandmother's energy, the wise ones, it's like the meta goddess is the wise elder that you can consult in your life to help support you in your decisions and what you're wanting to move forward on. So working with the circle of grandmothers would be really awesome for you.
Jenny is saying her birth date is the 13th of January 1980. What was the meta goddess when she was born? Thank you.
Okay. 1980, the 13th of January.
Yeah.
She's in her Venus return, Gemini, not a goddess.
Oh, wow.
And it was at the root chakra gate, morning star. So that's going to happen. Right now we're at the heart chakra. November is going to be the solar plexus. December will be the sacral chakra, and January will be the root chakra. So that'll represent the Venus return, and you'll be age 40. Your age 40 Venus return will be happening then. So you have a little time to prepare for that. And I would definitely recommend going out and connecting with Venus and the moon in the sky, or just seeing Venus, even when she's by herself in the morning sky, and just tuning in and maybe journaling around what the message she has for you is.
Jenny says she's 40 already this year.
Oh, sorry, right. 1980, January of 1980, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was looking at 81. Sorry. Oops. So Scorpio, so you could just completed your Venus return. Scorpio met a goddess that just shifted to Libra. And in January, that was Morning Star. And she was at the crown chakra in that cycle. So the connection to spirit, releasing all the distortions that are in the way of your connection, a powerful connection to spirit.
Excellent. We've got Maria who says January the 2nd, 1966.
Okay. Okay, January 2nd, 1966. Ha! Okay, so that is a Gemini cycle. And January, what was the date? The 2nd. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So it was right before Venus went retrograde. So it was at the very end of the cycle. So she's just going into the final integration and synthesis of the entire cycle prior. So this means that in this this time coming up at the end of in 2021, in December of 2021, to January, early January, you'll be at where Venus will be back where it was when you were born. And that's that synthesizing integration phase of the Venus cycle, the last part of the cycle.
Okay, I'm just aware of the time. So we're just going to say a couple more. So we've got Constance, 27th of May, 1972.
1972. Okay. 27th of May.
Yeah.
All right. So Venus had just stationed retrograde. So in the evening sky. And it was the Scorpio met a goddess. So you've just completed your Venus return in June of this year. So that would have, and in fact, when Venus is retrograde, that is an interesting time for you. And interestingly, in a lot of mainstream or more main current astrology look at Venus, or any planet retrograde is seen as diminished. So, but we of course don't see it that way. And something to know is that when Venus is retrograde, she's closest to the earth, she's brightest, and she's most stunning. She's in her most stunning phase. And if she's in the evening sky, she's retrograde for like 16 days in the evening sky. Then she goes into the underworld for 7 or 8 days, conjuncts the sun, and then rises up in the morning sky and is retrograde for about 16 days. So it's a powerful integration, and it's really it's like pulling an arrow back on a bow. Like when you pull an arrow back, it looks like you're moving it away from the target, but what you're doing is gathering strength and energy and potential. So when you release that arrow, it can go towards its target. So I think the Venus retrograde is a powerful time, and it's retrograde about 40 days. So only every 19 months is a go retrograde.
So the last one, and I do apologize for everybody who's popped their things in. I don't have time to go through everybody, otherwise I'll be here all night literally uploading this video. So the last one is Kathy, and this is the 18th of July 63.
Okay. Another Scorpio.
Wow, it's been a real theme.
Oh my gosh. And a morning star, adding that to the whole story. So adding the fiery element to it, being willing to take action, ideally. And at the gate, so there are sometimes 8 times that the moon comes by Venus in the morning sky, and we associate it with a chakra gate. But when it's in the morning sky at the 8th time, we associate it with the Earth Star chakra and death by intent, meaning it's very shamanic. So there are those who go through shamanic practices that choose to go through a death and rebirth experience. And really, literally working with the Venus cycle is very shamanic in that sense, because you're going through the dying to who you think you are so you can be born to who you really are process. And so you were born at that gate, and that may be that there's a lot of shamanic death and rebirth that you experience in your life. I mean, we all do, but maybe more than the average bear. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful one to end on, actually, because I'm a morning star and I am exactly that. So I'm the death by intent gate / Inanna underworld. So yeah, and I have had an immense amount of shamanic death, dying to who I thought I was to become who I truly am. So it's, yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize enough really how beneficial it has been to consciously work with this process, this greater understanding of the intent that we came in with, but then also where we currently are. And for me personally, I find the whole of the astrology chart a bit overwhelming to get my head round. So just focusing on one aspect has been really useful for me, because I've been able to kind of deep dive. The thing that I love about the way that you work with this, with your Venus cycle work and the groups that you do, is that you have a lot of you have an awful lot of material that you share, but then as well it's very experiential. It's, you know, it's up to how much work we put in terms of getting really to the depths of our own cycle is how much we're going to benefit and gain from it. And so there's lots of journaling activities, lots of ceremony stuff that we can engage in or not, you know. I mean, again, it's our choice what we get out of
what you put into it is what you get out of it, is basically that idea. And it's not everything is for everybody, but there are guided journeys and there's practices and definitely things that people can do to engage it, to make it more alive for them. And one of the things that got me going on this was when I went through my age 56 Venus return, I decided to work with it ceremonially. And mainly because I had a client who was going through hers and she's like, how do I do that? I don't even know how to do that. And I was like, oh, well, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. And I came up with all these practices that I was like, I need to do them because I'm going into my Venus return. So I did it. And these all now are part of what we do in the Venus alchemy journey, along with other things that, of course, added in and so on. But it was life transforming for me to do that on my own. So you can do this on your own, but there's something about the power of a group, you know, because that increases our intent exponentially. And, you know, it's fun to see what other people are going through and being able to be there to be supported and support others in their journey. So we found that to be fun. But again, I literally at age 56, I just did it myself and I was blown away by how powerful it was to work with each segment of the journey. So I'm so glad it's working for you, Louise. This is awesome.
Well, I've got my 56 one coming up in a few years. So I'm kind of like...
It's really important because it's also a nodal return. So Venus return and nodal return together is super powerful and it can really put you on a new track. Just saying.
For all of those people who unfortunately we didn't get to share your meta goddess and everything with on this live call, part of Cayelin's free gifts, which she's providing quite a few things, is a 10-page overview, including a table so that you can find your meta goddess just by going through the table, finding your date of birth. and it will give you all kinds of information on, I think it actually gives where you are, like whether you're a morning star and thing as well, or does it just give them?
I don't think it does that, but it does help. I think it explains how you can determine whether you're morning star, evening star, underworld. And for some people they might get that, and other people they might not, or whatever. But we do the best we can. And if you are interested in the Venus Alchemy Signature Series, you will definitely learn all of that in that series of not only what is your Venus star phase, whether it's morning, evening, or underworld phase, or also your meta goddess. What does that mean? How is she showing up and influencing or supporting you in your journey? What sign the sun is in, if it's different than Venus, how is that influencing you? What sign the moon is in and how that is influencing you, and all the outer planets, and also your rising sign. So there's all these aspects of the signature, of your Venus signature, that are illuminated in that class. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I found that quite insightful to go through that, and I did that before I did the Gemini, Venus Gemini 19-month program as well.
Right, so you understand your signature as you're doing the journey, which is helpful, can be helpful. Yeah.
So just to go through the other parts of the free gift that Cayelin's generously offering, which can be found on the free gifts page. It can also be found under her photograph on the upcoming calls page and the replay page. So just go to the mundanetogmagicalliving.com website, and along the top will be upcoming calls. I think the replay page is up there as well, and the free gifts page. So just, you can find it in a number of places, but it's a PDF document describing how each of the seasonal signs express their sovereignty, a 27-minute audio initiatory journey through the story of Inanna as it relates to the Venus cycle, and then this 10-page overview, including the table to find your Venus metagoddess, and when your next 19-month Venus return cycle begins. And you will also be added to the monthly celestial timings newsletter, which obviously goes through the most important celestial events for each month as well.
It talks about where Venus is and when the Venus gates are and all that. So that's helpful for people who want to know that.
Absolutely. And I think, to be honest, though, follow your heart, allow yourself to be guided, drawn to whatever works for you, to whatever is interesting you. If this is a pull, fantastic. All of the details for Cayelin's website and work will be underneath the video, but also underneath the audio, and can be found on the daily email with the information about this live event as well. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can connect with Cayelin and her work following on from this live call, should you feel drawn to. But I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. I've absolutely loved it.
Thank you. So fun.
So thank you so much, Cayelin, for coming on, sharing your absolutely limitless knowledge and wisdom about the Venus cycle. But I know you would say you're always still learning and exploring and experiencing as you go along. So it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. And to everybody else, we're coming to the end of the summit. We have another 2 live calls. Tomorrow is with Nicholas David Nagan, who's talking about the soul contract decoded. And then we have Judy Carley on Sunday. I will endeavour to get the timings right on everything, but I'm holding my hand up now and saying that may still not happen. So please follow. If you're in the Facebook group, the post will come out an hour before, and also an email will come out an hour before. So wherever you are in the world, if you get that email, it's an hour after that email goes out.
And it's not 10 a.m. Pacific, it's 11 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, I mean, the whole STDT thing kind of just blew my mind. I've got to be honest with you all. I'm usually okay with it. It's just this Mercury retrograde just seems to have completely rewired my brain as to what they mean.
And also, just so you know, that US people are going off daylight time on November 1st in a couple of days. So I live in Arizona where we don't do daylight time. Love that. But then I have to adjust my brain for everybody else who has adjusted their time. So it's like, could we just pick a time and stick with it?
That would be lovely.
Wouldn't it be nice?
It's just like 6 o'clock everywhere in the world.
Right. Actually, I think they do that in China. It's like the same, no matter what time zone they have one time for the whole, so it's like, it could be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, some places, and like pitch black dark, and or more early morning or whatever. So it's like, I don't know how they do that, but anyway.
Yeah, that I'm sure a lot of people would complain about that, but hey.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that we do that, but it would be nice if people could just be either on daylight time or standard time, and then we could just be used to that instead of switching back and forth all the time. They've also found that when they switch the clocks, there's more accidents, there's more illnesses, there's more emergency room visits, and so on. So it would be better for everyone's health to stay on one time, and probably going on daylight time continuously, because in the US anyway, it's only 4 months of the year that they're on standard time. It seems kind of crazy to just
Yeah, I think
yeah.
we're a 6-month split. I think I'm not going to, myself.
Everyone's changing.
I
It
think
used to be 6 months here, and now it's 8 months. So they kept lengthening it.
I exist out of time most of the time. Anyway. I don't wear a watch, so it kind of all just
no watch. Yeah, no. I stopped wearing a watch like in 2000. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
I'm on cosmic time.
Yeah, I'm on cosmic time. It's like body clock time, and when the sun comes up time. That's how I'm working. Anyway, we could go on in this conversation forever. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Cayelin, and thanks to everybody who's joined us live. Thank you to everybody who connects with this video or audio on the replay. I am wishing you all so much love from my very open heart to yours, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.